It's the Sunday morning service from the Rogues Tavern, coming to you live on December 9th, 2018, pushing near the end of a year. Allahu Akbar. And it is the Sunday morning service from the Rogues Tavern, where we will continue our readings in the book of Genesis. We're going to be starting on chapter 15 today, but of course, a little background then, so we can just let folks know out there what it is. This is a reading from the Holy Bible, King James Version, reference edition. It was given to me in 1973 by my grandmother, so it was purchased back in 1972, give or take. So it's a decently old Bible, and it's got a nice little piece up front that I've been reading from called Jesus, the Man for All Time. So this is where we start a little bit on the Sunday morning. Where had we left off? We had left off here. Orthodox Jews believe that a man's first parents fell from holiness and brought evil into the world. Since that time, all men were sinful, deserving punishment from God. But God had promised to redeem man from this sin. And in Nazareth, the members of the synagogue were attending services every Sabbath with the Redeemer, the Christ, and didn't know it. The first time Jesus preached there, the congregation was so outraged by what he said that they tried to throw him over the brink of a hill, but Jesus simply walked through them and escaped. The starting point for Jesus' ministry came when he was about 30 years old. John the Baptist, a rugged preacher who wore a garment of camel's hair with a leather belt and ate locusts and wild honey, tramped the wilderness of Judea, baptizing and teaching a doctrine of repentance for the forgiveness of sin. He talked of the coming of the Messiah and of one whose sandals he would not be worthy to tie. Jesus came to him and was baptized, and a voice came from the heavens saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I was pleased." There's a little bit more about Jesus, man for all time. We're going to carry this on, and we're going to dive right into chapter 15. If you want to hear the first 14 chapters have been read, you'll have to go back to the previous Sunday morning shows. You can find them in the playlist for Sunday morning services. And don't forget, take a few moments out of your time and subscribe to my channel. Tell folks about it. Pass the word. Let them know there's someone out there that is just reading the Bible and interpreting it as best they can. Kind of making sense of it, reading it from a layperson's point of view. Although, who is a preacher but a person who read and studied the Bible and then was determined by someone else to say, hey, you've read the Bible enough, you're now an expert. What makes an expert an expert? Expert is a person who studies things over and over again. They don't necessarily have to get a silly piece of paper from a school to become an expert. So who knows, maybe by the time I finish reading the end of this book, which, it takes a long time to read the Bible, I could be an expert. But at the moment, I'm just a layperson. All right. Genesis, chapter 15, verse 1. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Thou shalt not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. That's kind of an interesting thing. Okay, Abram at this point. Abram has no heirs. He's saying, God, I don't have any heirs. I'm going childless. And God's saying, hey, one's going to come out of your bowels. So instead of coming out of his penis and sperm, it's going to come out of his bowels. So, and what comes out your bowels is usually what you shit out the other end. All right, that's kind of twisted. We got a frog in the throat this morning. Let's chase that frog away. All right, verse 5. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. So God's saying, hey, Abram, don't worry, you're going to have so many heirs, they're going to outnumber the stars in the sky. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur and of Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit. Chaldees. I seem to recall Chaldees being a word used in Star Trek once. It was, I believe, in the Next Generation stuff, Voyager, when they ran across those First Nations people, and there's like Chaldees. Chaldees was the land of Ur. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old. 3, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. So we want a 3-year-old goat, a ram, and a heifer, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. That like the origins of a turtle dove and a partridge and a pear tree. No, not sorry, right, same words. Close enough. And he did look unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against the other. But the birds divided he not. Okay, that doesn't make sense. And he took unto him all of these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against the other. Oh, he cut them in half and laid them into each other. Okay. But the birds he didn't divide. So he put the birds down a hole while he cut the ram, the goat, and the heifer into halves and laid them against each other. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abraham drove them away. So, of course, the buzzards and the other birds came down on the carcasses. Abraham had chased them away. Hey, that's God's food, man. Go away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham. And lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. So he had some nightmares. Fell asleep and nightmares occurred. And he said unto Abraham, now we're going to assume that this is, and he said, so we're going to say God said unto Abraham, know a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. So your seed's going to end up in some land that's not theirs, and they're going to be servants and slaves for 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. So they're going to serve some nation, and then God's going to judge them as being horrendous for some reason, and Abraham's heirs are going to leave there with a crap load of goods. Okay, that's promising. It's exciting. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, and for the iniquity of all the Amorites it is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river of Euphrates. So the land between the Egyptian river, the river of Egypt, and the Euphrates is supposed to be the land of Abraham's kids, according to God. The Canaanites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. So this is who he's given it to. These are all the different people that are getting the land. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Hagar. Is that like Hagar in, in Harry Potter? Is that Hagar? Hagar? It's interesting. Anyway, the name is Hagar. Hagar. That's the pronunciation that they've got here. H-A-G-A-R. Long accent on the A. Hagar. Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abraham, behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. All right, now this is interesting. Okay, he didn't have any kids. His wife wasn't having any kids. And she goes, hey, I've got a maid over here. She's young and hot. Well, she didn't say that, but we got a maid over here. Go over there, do her up, get her pregnant. It's all right. What happened to, well, we don't have the 10 laws yet, so I guess it's okay, because at this point in the Bible, the The Ten Commandments don't exist. So, you know, you can't commit adultery if the law doesn't exist yet. So, in essence, he's committing adultery here. And Sarai, Abram's wife, and of course he's like, hey, yeah, I'm down with it. I'm down with it, honey. I'll go bang the maid. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years, had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. Oh, now he's his wife. Now she's his wife. Oh, okay. So Sarai became the second wife, I guess, or the first wife, and now Abraham has a second wife. All right, well, maybe they got around this adultery thing just a little bit because now he can be a bigamist. It works. It works. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. I love the way they say that. He went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. That's a really polite way to say he went in there and did some stuff. Hagrid. Nah. Hagrid. Ah, Hagrid. There we go. So Hagar, Hagrid. Yeah, they're close. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. All right, let's read that again. We got lost here. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife, his second wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So the maid conceived, and then she looked at her mistress and went, yeah, look at me, baby. Your husband does me once. I've got a baby. You got nothing. All right. Now, so she despised her. And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid, it is in thy hand to do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt heartily with her, she fled from her face. So she was upset. She was despised by the maid. And Abraham looks, hey, it's your maid. Do whatever you want with her. They don't go into the details here, but they do sort of hint around it just a little bit that when Sarai dealt heartily with her, she fled from her face. So did she give her a good tongue lashing, a lashing, a good beat down? Who knows? But she did something to piss her off. So the maid went, or not piss her off, to just scare her or something to her. And so the maid fled, took off. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. And he said to Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. So go back to her and be submissive. What are you doing taking off? And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Okay, so the angel says, hey, go back to her, submit yourself. And then the angel saying, angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. That's kind of contradictory. Read it. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. Okay, we're going to multiply your seed. You're going to have it exceedingly multiplied, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. It's going to be exceedingly, but it's not going to be numbered for a multitude. All right, so it's not going to be a multitude, but it's going to be multiplied. Okay. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, and his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Oh, he's going to be a controversial kind of person. See that one again. Let's go back those two. Okay, and behold, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael. Okay, easy enough. She's going to bear Ishmael. And Ishmael is a big figure in the Bible. You hear about him from time to time. Because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. So the Lord heard about you getting your ass handed to you by your mistress. And he will be a wild man. So Ishmael is going to be a wild man. His hand will be against every man. So he's going to be against everyone. And then every man's hand against him. So he's basically going to be fighting a lot. You know, every man against him, him against every man. So he's got no support here, according to this. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And he's still going to live with all his brothers. All right. And she called the name of the Lord. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Beer-lahai-roi. 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 Tough words. I'm getting better at them now. I really am. Beer-lahai-roi. And behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram his son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael. 80. What's 80? We're gonna have to figure this, because the dating in the Bible for ages and other things, it's like they sometimes give you 80, they sometimes give you years, they give you, it's like they're never consistent. It's really quite irritating. 80. What is 80? 80 and 20 years. So 80 and 10. And we're gonna so 80 is 20 years. Okay, so 20 years. So he wasn't all that old. Where do we go here? Fourscore and 6 would be 26 years old. Nah, that's got to be a little wrong. Something's not right. Fourscore. We're gonna have to look this up. We're gonna take a 30-second thing here, and we're gonna get this one right. Live research. That's what we've got here. Live research. Fourscore years. 80 years. A score is equal to 20 years. That's what we're looking at. So 4 times 20 is 80. He was 86 years old. He was definitely an old man. There we go. He was 86 years old. 80 and 8. 80 and 6. So a score is 20 years. All right. So he was an 86-year-old man when he had his first son. That's getting pretty old. Well, by Bible standards, though, it's still kind of young, because, you know, they live to be 400, 500, 600 years old sometimes. sometimes 900. But, so they're only a quarter of their life. All right, chapter 17. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, see, look at that. Before it's fourscore and 6, now it's 90 years and 9. It's like they're not consistent. The Lord appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, and saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but that name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. So this is the part where God makes this everlasting covenant with Abraham, changing his name to Abraham, and making the covenant not only with Abraham, but his seed, his generations beyond. So this is a permanent covenant according to the Bible. Permanent. It doesn't give a breakable point. Goes on to say, And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, and all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. So this is where God comes in and goes, hey, I know the Canaans own that land. You're a stranger there, but you know what? Fuck them. I'm giving you the land. Well, what about all the people that were there? Everyone argues, well, what about all the people? Well, so God came in and said, hey, this is his land. You can use these arguments in multiple ways, and many people do, crazily enough. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant thereof, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. Now this is how God has determined as to whether or not he's keeping the covenant. Every man has to have the tip of his penis snipped off to keep the covenant with God. If they're in lineage to Abraham. All the other poor men out there who've had their penis tips snipped off, well, it wasn't because of a covenant with God. It was other ludicrous reasons. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. Oh, so God's extending this thing out, man. He's saying not only are you going to have to do your boys, but any boys that become in part of your house or ones that you buy, slaves, we bought them, they're slaves. They're also to be circumcised. If they're 8 days or older, they have to be circumcised. That's really kind of cruel. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So he's making this covenant with Abraham and his seed, but he's gonna torture and maim every other male that comes under the house of Abraham. That's actually kind of cruel. It really is. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. So if he doesn't get circumcised, He's cut off from the covenant of God. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. So God's like, hey, your wife Sarai, all right, throw Sarai out. She's now going to be Sarah. I'm going to bless her. She's going to have a kid. Now, she's pretty old. Really old, actually. We'll get to that in a minute. I believe they cover her age here shortly. So we'll move it on here. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? Yeah, well, that's pretty much what you think about. It's like, yeah, I'm 100 years old. Okay, I could have a kid because I'm male. I'm always, it happens. But a woman at 90, have a baby? God, you're nuts. That's pretty much what he did there. He fell on his knees and started laughing. And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. So poor Ishmael is cut out of this deal because, well, he's the maid's kid. He's the bastard. He's the bastard child. Ishmael's the poor bastard child, even though the maid was made his wife, but it was second wife, so he's being cut out because it's not going to be born of the first wife. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. Well, okay, Ishmael didn't get too bad of a deal. Sure sounded like he was going to be cut out of it. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac. Okay, so the covenant is with Isaac, but he's not the covenant with Ishmael. Ishmael got he got a good second prize here. He's going to have kids. He's going to create 12 princes. And so he's going to be a great nation. But he's not going to have the covenant with God. So I guess Ishmael doesn't have to go out there and circumcise his kids and himself. Is that one of the reasons for the splits? That's interesting. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. All right, so your wife's going to have a baby at a set time in the next year. Well, that's okay. And he left off, taken with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were brought with his money, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins in the self same day as God had said unto him. So that was a bloody day. We can call that the bloody penis day. There you go. The bloody penis day for poor Abraham's household. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the self same day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, born in the house, and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. Wow. Okay, well that leaves us at chapter 18. Yeah, we only managed to get about three chapters at a time here. So we're not going to run this for hours. Half an hour is more than adequate. Well, there you go. There you have the story of how Abram was changed into Abraham, how his wife tossed him the maid and said, hey, here's your second wife. Go bang her because we need a kid. You need a kid. Go commit adultery. Oh, wait, it's not adultery. It's bigamy. Oh, wait a minute. I'm really upset now because I gave you her to have a kid, but I really didn't think it would happen. I thought it was you, old man, that wasn't getting me pregnant. It turns out it's me. Now I'm pissed. I'm mad at this maid, and the maid gets upset, and the maid's like, despises her because, hey, you're like nobody. You couldn't get pregnant. You couldn't look at me. I can deliver a baby. You couldn't deliver squat. So she beats the crap out of the maid. The maid runs away. God says, hey, come back here, submit yourself, and your son will be blessed. If you don't submit yourself, well, he doesn't say it, but it's probably implied is, hey, you're going to be screwed. And then, of course, God comes down and says, hey, you're not going to be Abraham anymore. You're going to be Abraham, the father of nations. I'm going to make a covenant with you. I'm going to give you all these lands, even though they belong to somebody else. We're going to give you these lands. You're probably going to have to fight for them, but hey, we're giving them to you. You can claim them in the name of God. God said so. Because God said so, they're your lands. And then God says, hey, as verification of this covenant, I want you to cut off the tip of your dick. All right, tip of your penis. And it's not even, well, it's the little skin that hangs over the end. We're going to snip that bad boy off, and you're just going to be like that. And not only are you going to do it, your kids are going to do it, but every man in your household, whether they're related to you or not. That's just mean. That's just mean. It really is. And then they say, well, what about Ishmael? Oh, God's like, well, I'm not going to make the covenant with Ishmael. Oh, God says, oh, by the way, your wife, Sarah, who's 90 years old, really an old woman, her fertility windows have long set, slammed shut. I'm going to make her pregnant. She's going to have a baby. We're going to call him Isaac. You know what? I'm going to make my covenant with Isaac because he's the son of your first wife. They don't say that there, but that's the implied. And your second son, well, he doesn't get the covenant. He's not part of it. Still going to make you cut off his penis tip, though. But he's not part of the covenant. And then what's going to happen is, okay, he won't get such a bad deal. We'll allow him to multiply and be fruitful, and he can create 12 princes. And I'm sure we can find out more about Ishmael's princes, not princesses. Got to get the words right. Princes line. So anyway, it's really quite interesting. And this is where the Bible actually starts to get really entertaining in the book of Genesis. There's a lot of really backwards and forwards and backstabbing and conniving. It's really going to get entertaining up in here. If you never read this, you should do it sometime. Because if you read it with an open mind, once you get past the verbiage, I mean, sometimes you're double back and triple backing because it just doesn't make sense. Because the words are contradicting each other in the sentences, as we saw. But anyway, lots of fun. Tune in every Sunday morning, somewhere between 8 and 9 a.m. for the Sunday morning podcast from the Rogues Tavern, where we read from the Bible, actual words that are printed, and try to interpret them to the best of my ability. That's pretty much all we got for you. Take care now.
Amen. Fist bump.